Good evening. It is 6:30. Members of council are assembled when you're ready to begin.
Okay. No, if my computer's off, sounds like it's coming from, I'm hearing my own voice, which is just like the worst possible thing that could happen to me. All right. I'd like to call to order this regular council meeting of March 24th, 2025. Well, welcome all members and a couple folks in the chambers. Welcome to both of you and anybody watching us via the live stream. Glad everybody's here. Second item on the agenda is the land acknowledgement, and the Vice Deputy Mayor has that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for the contributions they have made in both caring for the land and shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Thank you. Next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Any member of one of those I'd like to declare? I have two items to declare this evening. I'm going to keep the Deputy Mayor busy. She's going to take over for me on two of these items under item 9. The first is on 9.1, the Hibbury Farm encroachment agreement. I'm declaring that as I am a shareholder in Hibbury Farm Incorporated. And the second is with relation to 9.4, the BIA item. I am awaiting an opinion from the Integrity Commissioner on this one. So out of an abundance of caution tonight, I am going to declare a pecuniary interest because I am a shareholder in a corporation that owns commercially assessed property that is within the proposed expansion of the Southampton BIA. So as I say, on those two items, the Deputy Mayor will take over the chair. Okay, so now we're on to additions, deletions, and amendments. And on that, I would request by consensus if council would agree to move item 9.4 up to immediately follow 9.1, given my pecuniary interest in 9.4, and deal with both items at once. Is there any objection to that? No objection. Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. Then item 5 is adoption of minutes. And so we have the regular council minutes of March 10th, 2025, and the resolution is that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of March 10th, 2025 as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Stack, seconded by Councillor Halpin. Are there any questions or comments to those minutes? Seeing none, then all in favor? That is carried. Okay, so now we're down to reports of municipal officers and the two items in which I have a pecuniary interest, so I will vacate the chair.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Okay, 9.1 on the agenda is titled Hibbury Farms Encroachment Agreement. And we have a staff report, and I will ask the Director of Development Services, Mark Polly, to present that report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Huber. This report is about entering into an agreement with Hibbury Farm, who own lands on either side of the rail trail, and they would like to extend irrigation infrastructure from one side of the rail trail to the other. And this would be through a conduit to be established under the rail trail between their lands and enabling them to irrigate the fields. So that's what this agreement is about. The main policy considerations that went into our recommendation included safety, and we note that the proposed encroachment would not create hazards for users of the trail. The public's rights of usage would not be interfered with. The irrigation infrastructure addresses a need consideration in that it's needed for growing the fruits and vegetables on the applicant's lands. And Public Works reviewed this proposal and have no concerns about any adverse effects on the municipal infrastructure or work or plans in that location. So if approved, this would enable Hibbury Farms to install this conduit, which they'd like to do in April or the spring. Main highlights of the agreement is that it's for 15 years, requires $5 billion of insurance, and requires that the licensee give notice, in this case, Hibbury Farm, of any work starting to the town and to the Saugeen Rail Trail. So those are the main highlights. The agreement has the typical considerations that we've been bringing forward in recent encroachment agreements. So I won't go through all those details. And the annual fee would be $303.13 if this is approved. And that would go up with tax levy increases over time. So that was the main points I wanted to get across for this report, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. Well, we have a recommendation that an encroachment agreement is recommended to allow a conduit to be installed under the rail trail to provide irrigation to the adjacent farm field. The encroachment agreement and the authorizing bylaw are included in the bylaws section of our agenda. I do have a recommendation that council adopt bylaw 26-2025, a bylaw to authorize the execution of an encroachment agreement for Hibbury Farms. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Halpin, seconded by Councillor Grace. Is there any discussion? Councillor Davinsky.
Yes, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, through you. Just a couple of clarifications. We have, if you look at the picture, the PDF, red is the existing conduit and blue is the proposed new one. Does that mean they will have two conduits to their fields? Wait a minute.
Through Deputy Mayor Huber, there would be two conduits for a period of time until 2026. I think it's April 2026. The existing red one, that agreement will expire. We don't see any reason to physically remove it because it's providing some benefit from a drainage standpoint. And then once that agreement expires, then there will only be the one agreement, which is this new one we're recommending, which runs for 15 years.
Just to follow up through you, the blue one, the proposed one, is on an angle. The red one is straight across, and I assume it does the field to the east as well, or to the north. And the blue one will do what fields? Where will it? Do we know that?
Through Deputy Mayor Huber, it is going to be doing a different field from the one that currently is in place. I believe it's to the lands, if we're looking at the air photo, it's for the lands to the, we'll call it southwest. But I think the idea is that this will give the farm the flexibility to irrigate multiple different areas of the farm, not necessarily one field.
The cost for this, you said it was $313. Is that for one or is that for both?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Huber, that $303 is for the new agreement, and that's an annual cost. There's a $100 agreement for the existing one, which will expire next year.
Any further comments or questions? Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. Encroachments are a fairly common occurrence with municipalities. For instance, if someone has a patio on a main street, or I know there is encroachments for other for parking in my neighborhood and stuff like that. So these encroachments are fairly common business. Is that correct?
Mark, do you want to, or Director Polly?
3-year, yes, that's a fairly common piece of business for municipalities that, especially that are extended to rural areas and own fair chunks of land.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no further questions, I will call the question that council adopt bylaw 26-2025, a bylaw to authorize the execution of an encroachment agreement for Hibbury Farms. All those in favor? That's carried. And we did adjust the order, so 9.4 has become 9.2. So this report, this is about the business improvement areas, the BIA update. This report is being brought forward to recommend amending bylaw 80-2012 and establishing which would establish a percentage-based levy structure to allow more flexibility in the annual operating budget of the Port Elgin Business Improvement Association. Additionally, this report outlines the steps required to consider an expansion to the boundary areas of both the Port Elgin BIA, PEBIA, and the Southampton BIA to include all businesses in Saugeen Shores. And we will look to Amanda Monahan for this report. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Thank you. And through you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Huber. Yes, so you reviewed some of the highlights there. Speaking to the levy, the percentage-based levy structure will make the Port Elgin BIA's funding model more responsive to the needs of the businesses. It will simplify administration and will foster growth in the business area.
Can I just interrupt you for a second? Are we sure that's working? It doesn't sound as though it is. If you can speak right into the microphone, please. Thanks, Amanda.
Is this better? Thank you. So yes, the percentage-based levy structure can make the Port Elgin BIA's funding model more responsive to the needs of the businesses, and it will simplify administration. It will foster growth in the area, and it will also help ensure contributions are closely aligned with the size of the business, making it a fair and more sustainable model in the long term. You spoke to, additionally, this report provides information regarding the steps required to consider a boundary expansion for both the Port Elgin BIA and the Southampton BIA to include all commercially assessed properties in Saugeen Shores. The report outlines the process for exploring and expanding the boundaries. There are proposed maps for the new boundaries included in the report. We have had some feedback regarding the boundaries that are being reviewed with the BIAs and the GIS team. The expansion is in the exploratory phase only, and updates will come forward to council as the process unfolds. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Amanda. There's two parts to the report, perhaps just to focus the discussion. We have a recommendation before us that council adopt bylaw 27-2025, a bylaw to allow the Port Elgin BIA to change their minimum and maximum levy to a percentage-based structure. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that motion to get it on the floor? Moved by Councillor Mayette, seconded by Councillor Grace. If we can focus on that bylaw first, and then we'll move on to the expansion. So are there any comments or questions? Councillor Mayette?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, Deputy Mayor, whatever. Amanda, could you explain how the current funding model works and how the new proposed funding model works? Because I'm a little confused as to how the levies are divvied up with the businesses.
Yes. So the current levies have a minimum and maximum dollar amount. So what happens is excuse me, through you, Deputy Mayor. So what happens is as the Port Elgin BIA it grows their operating budget, increases it, they're not able to go beyond that current set maximum levy charge, if that makes sense. So I think it's around, let's call it $600 right now is their maximum levy.
Per business.
Uh, They, based on the assessed value of each property, they determine how much each business would pay. But there is the minimum and maximum number right now. And so what's happened is they've increased their operating budget and the levies aren't reflecting that increase because it is exceeding that dollar amount.
Well, when we do our budgets in November, we allocate a dollar value to the BIAs respectively. That doesn't form part of this levy you're talking about. That's the town's portion, correct?
Correct.
And then this levy per business is additional to that.
That is correct.
I think the CAO would like to make a comment.
Oh,
And perhaps the Director of Corporate Services could add a little insight to it as well, but the percentage is what's used. The percentage or the fee is used to make up that budget amount. So it's not in addition to a budget amount. That is their total budget is what we approve through the budget. It's really the methodology to calculate it. So the Southampton one right now is percentage based. The Port Elgin one has a min and max, and then this year we've realized they've reached the max, so they can't actually increase their budget. So we have to correct the formula that we're using in order to approve that budget for them.
so when we allocate the money in the budget in the fall to the BIAs, that's not money coming out of the taxation budget, that's coming out of the per business budget?
So there's the town levy, which council sets a rate for. And that gets applied to all the properties based on their assessed value. For BIA, there's an additional levy, a BIA levy. And that is based off of the budget that the BIA is setting, brings to council. Council endorses that levy. And then we calculate a rate based on that. In the case of Port Elgin, their levy was going from 33,000 to 66,000. So a big increase in the levy. And the issue they had is that their mins and maxes were set at absolute dollar amounts. They weren't set relative to the budget. So when the budget doubled, those mins and maxes that were absolute dollar amounts didn't make sense anymore. And that's why Amanda is proposing that it switch to a percentage so that it always can adjust according to the budget that they're setting.
Then a follow-up, now that and I hate to get into the second part, but we're adding a whole bunch more businesses to the BIA. Does that mean that the existing members of the BIA, their levy is going to go way down because now you're spreading it out over a much larger area? And second, do the businesses have a choice whether they want to be in or not?
I think we can hold on to that question to the second part where the process for the potential expansion would be outlaid, because it's not a given. There is a process. So hold on to that question just a couple minutes. I did just want to clarify too, the word per business was used and then per property. The levy, the BIA levy is per commercial property. So if the business is renting the space, it is the property owner who gets the request to pay the levy. So just hang on to your question, Councillor Mayette. Is there anybody else who wants to ask a question or comment on Councillor Hulp and then Councillor Stack?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. Excuse me. So, did the BIA have a consensus, or how did they gather a consensus that they wanted to have this direction? And I kind of want to ask the question this way, like you have a number of businesses down there, and I guess everyone is a member of the BIA, kind of whether they want to be or not, correct? And so how many businesses are and how many people are involved? And of those people involved, how many people are in favor of pursuing this?
Thank you. And through you, Deputy Mayor Huber. So per the process, the expansion has not went forward just yet. They are in the gauging sentiment part of the process. So what will happen from here is that letters will be sent out to all the existing and the businesses in the new proposed area.
If I could just, I think you were asking about the levy increase.
Oh.
If you could focus on that just first, that would be, so where's that request coming from?
That request is coming from both BIA boards.
Okay, can I, through you? Approximately how many businesses are in the BIA? Do you have that? In Port Elgin?
About 100?
About 100, and how many are active members?
I do not have that answer for you right now.
The CAO would like
So-
to make a comment, just,
Okay.
then we'll be back to you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. So much like the Director of Corporate Services was explaining, is there's a boundary that's established around the BIA. So that was the attachment that you had in there. So there's the existing. So the existing boundary is what Amanda's referring to, has approximately 100 members in it, or 100 businesses in it that are, as the Deputy Mayor said, would have commercial assessment. So that's what gets them into the BIA. That gets applied as a special levy, like they see it on their taxes. So it's not something you opt in or opt out of. Once you're in the boundary, you're in the boundary. And if you're commercially assessed, you'll pay the BIA levy. And then what they do is they elect a board. So every year they hold an annual general meeting, and that's what they would do, is elect the board, and the board then sets the budget. So that the board sets the budget, forwards it to us, and council adopts that budget. So you asked the question, how do people have a say in it? It's through that AGM process and the election of the board, which is different than what Amanda will explain when we get to the expansion. The expansion process has a very legislative process they have to go through, but to set the annual budget, it's through that annual general meeting and through their board of directors.
May I have a follow-up? Thank you very much for that explanation. So if there's about 100 businesses, how many businesses voted in favor of increasing this rate or changing it, would be my question. I guess what I'm getting at is there's 100 businesses. How many active members on the board do you have? Is it like 10 active members, or 20 or 30 or 100? Thank you.
The CAO is going to make a comment.
Yeah. Through you, Deputy Mayor, it's much like a council here, right? So they wouldn't take every motion forward to the entire membership. They would present that budget at the annual general meeting. Those that attend would have a vote at the annual general meeting. I'm not sure how many attended, but as I said, the board, much like this council does, sets the budget for the organization for the year based on what they want to accomplish. It would be up to every member in there whether or not they want to participate in that process. They wouldn't take a vote of membership.
Thank you.
If I could just add, the current Port Elgin BIA board is 5 members. I would be the council member there, and there are 4 representatives of commercial properties. And so there was a question through the board of directors. It did carry. I actually didn't vote because I didn't think I could vote at the time. But the motion to go after the bylaw that Amanda's talking about did carry through the board. But there were four members there. I think, did you have something else? And then Councillor Stack?
Very brief. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. I guess what my concern is, how are you sure that all the businesses are behind this? You have 100 businesses down there. You have 4 or 5 people on your board. I would say that this council has done and this staff has done a very good job about consulting the public engagement and everything with all kinds of things, with our parks and with just all kinds of things. And I guess my concern is, do the 100 members, are they solidly behind this, like increasing these levies and everything like that? And how did you reach out to those 100 businesses? Thank you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I just want to clarify that we're not increasing the levy. So we're changing the way that the levy will be calculated. So right now, again, it has a minimum, maximum dollar amount. And what we're moving to is a percentage base. It's this going to be the same budget. So we're not changing, unless the director wants to correct me. I do not believe the budget is changing at all. So that got set again through their annual general meeting where every member would have gotten notice and presented that budget.
Thank you.
So I think I'm asking the same question that's been asked 3 times, but I'm a bit, I'll admit, a bit thick. So I was just reading your response earlier today. So just so I'm clear, so when you say a percentage, so if the property is worth 500K, it's going to be, is it what's the percentage now? Like for 2025, what would the percentage levy be? Do you know? Oh, sorry.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I don't think any of us have that in front of us because again, it'd be taking that budgeted amount and figuring out what gets applied to each of the commercial businesses within the boundary area. So that'll be a calculation that the finance department does after we make this decision.
Okay. And just a comment, just on the issue of, to Councillor Halpin's point, like I think and I think Deputy Mayor Huber also made the comment, every business in the BIA has an opportunity to join. One of the issues we've had as a former member on the BIA is a lack of interest. So I understand the concern, but these businesses have the opportunity to participate. And I think I have some comments on the expansion of the boundaries, which is a different issue. But I think it's important to note that the BIA is not just sort of acting in isolation. All the communication has been provided. It's whether the other businesses opt to participate or not. Thanks.
Councillor Mayette?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Yeah, so currently, under the current scheme, every business pays the same amount. And what's being we'll take a minute.
We'll just take a minute here. Okay, Councillor Mayette, go on.
Right, thank you. So currently, every business in the BIA pays the same. And what's being proposed is that they will be levied based on the size of their business. So the big businesses are going to see their levy percentage go up, and the small businesses are going to see their portion go down. Is that correct?
The change is that the min and max are going from an absolute dollar min and max. So not all businesses are paying the same. They're paying within a min and max that are based on a dollar amount. And the change here is just changing from a dollar min max to a percent min max. So there was before variation in what businesses were paying, and there will continue to be variation. Both of them were governed by mins and maxes. It's just the way the mins and maxes are calculated, or one was not calculated, was fixed, and now we calculate it based off a percent.
So under the existing system, somebody made a determination as to which businesses were big, which ones are medium, and which ones are small. And that's how they got,
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I guess the determination is made by MPAC. So it's how much commercial assessment you have on your property. So it's not staff making that determination.
with a ceiling and a basement as to how much you could pay. But now it's going to be absolute based on your assessed value of your property. So it seems like still there's going to be a bit of a mix up or some change.
Previously there was a min and a max, and in the future there is still if this is approved, there still will be a min and a max. It's just before the min and the max were an absolute dollar amount, which did not adjust over the years. And so you can imagine over time, those mins and max dollar amounts become kind of not appropriate anymore because they're fixed. And so to get around that and make it that it will adjust with time, the proposal is to make it percentage based so that those mins and maxes will adjust as the budget will grow over time with inflation.
Yep. I think I understand. And I also think I understand that the current mins and maxes doesn't add up to the total levy. So that's why you had to get rid of them. And in doing so, you just adopted the model that Southampton has been using for some time, which gets them to the number they need to get to. Okay, thank you.
We almost need a little ding or something, which is turn your microphone off. Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor Davinsky?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, I am a member of the Southampton BIA. We too have 5 members on the board, but anybody can come to the meeting whenever they want. And we do put out agendas and so on. We are on the percentage program. And when we did that, I think it was 2, maybe 3 years ago. And we made sure the businesses knew what was going on. I am not the chair of the BIA. I don't own a business in Southampton. Therefore, I refuse to be the chair. The chair is a business owner, and Sarah Porter, and she's far better at telling the story to fellow colleagues. So that's how we do it. It was, as was said, at the AGM, there was a vote, and that vote was accepted. We literally doubled our levy because we had left it so low for so long. And so we doubled it. We got the okay from the BIA members with a guarantee that we would not increase it for 2 years. And I do believe we're into our 2nd year now. So maybe down the road, we'll have to increase it. But right now, it's not. And everything seems to be working. By the way, I think we have 81 businesses in Southampton in the BIA. Thanks.
Just as a comment, this bylaw would not change the value of the amount that's there for 2025. That was established through the budget process. It's just setting up a different sort of allocation of or calculation as to how they get there, which then if assessments stay the same and the boundary stays the same, it would be a similar situation in 2026. Councillor Halpin?
I think you just, through you, I think you just answered my question. My question was going to be, will changing this be kind of revenue neutral for the existing businesses this year? And that answer is yes. Thank you.
Councillor Mayette?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. The one thing that Councillor Davinsky said was the BIA voted for the 100% increase in the levy 2 years ago, correct?
Sorry if I may. No, I said at the AGM. The AGM voted for the double in the levy.
So if the AGM is the body that approves what the levy is, why do we have to approve it in our budget?
Go ahead.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, the AGM is where the proposed budget is approved. And then it comes forward to council. So you remember both BIA presidents came here, made presentation during budget, and council approves the budget.
Anything further? Well, we do have a motion on the floor that council adopt bylaw 27-2025, a bylaw to allow the Port Elgin BIA to change their minimum and maximum levy to a percentage-based structure. There is a mover and a seconder. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Okay, the second part of the discussion had to do with the potential to go forward with an expansion. Thank you. And so there is a process involved and the CAO will outline the process, excuse me.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I'll just turn your attention to page 2 of the report, where Amanda has outlined there's the boundary expansion. And at the bottom of page 2, it talks about the boundary expansion steps. And on page 3, it talks about the formal process, which is targeted for Q2. So right now, what you'll see is that we're in the preliminary steps of discussion around the boundary expansion. So our GS team has done some maps, which are attached. They've developed a list of contact, drafted a letter for the BIA. We're doing this information update to council. And then following today, the letter and the maps will get sent to those in the new boundary proposed. And the BIA will collate the feedback from the property owners. And if less than 1/3 of commercial property owners are opposed, then it will be brought, the formal process will start. And then that formal process is part, as it's noted, is part of the municipal act. So it is very detailed on what the municipality will do. And there's those 4 steps that are outlined there, where actually the clerk of the municipality has the responsibility to take the municipality through the steps in order to expand it. So right now, again, we're at this preliminary stage. We brought the report to council to create awareness for you and hear some feedback on, as I've heard some members say, on the boundaries. But at this point, it is essentially the BIA moving that boundary review forward. They would come to council and say, we've proposed it, we've brought it forward to our members, we've passed the threshold of less than 1/3 opposed, and we'd like council to start the process. So the BIAs are the owners of that process with their members, not the town. We just facilitate it. So happy to, between myself and the clerk, to answer any questions.
Can I get you to just clarify, because at the beginning, the way that you were explaining it, it almost sounded as though the request would go out to all of the commercial properties within the potential enlargement areas too, but the initial request is just to actual members of the current BIAs, correct?
Oh, I didn't know if it would turn on, sorry. Through you, I'm just noting this top point on the 3rd page where it says mail the letter and applicable maps to businesses within the respective BIA boundary, new and proposed.
And as I've been told at our BIA board meetings, a no response to a communication like this is deemed a yes vote, just out there. So discussion. Councillor Halpin and Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. I'm hoping that the BIA will do a rigorous engagement with the businesses, following the good example set by staff, with their communications and all the projects that the town has been working on. So that's just my hope, that the BIA will have rigorous engagement with the businesses. And what I worry about stuff like this, and perhaps my fears are ungrounded, but you know, when you have a board of 4 or 5 people and you're making big decisions that affect this many businesses, and the onus is on the businesses to be involved, I see that, but I know business people will be busy, and I just hope there's a very rigorous engagement on this. Thank you.
I believe the letters would go to the commercial property owner, not necessarily the business. So just, there's a lot of component parts there. Go ahead.
And that's one thing I'm concerned about, is that, you know, some landlord gets this and does it get passed on? So I'm hoping for a rigorous public engagement.
But the landlord pays it. Councillor Mayette and then Councillor Davinsky.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have 2 questions, one about the boundary and one about the distribution of the levy. So if this proposal gets accepted, then the number of people paying into the levy is going to expand, Matt, hugely. Like, looks like about, I don't know about businesses, but certainly 3 or 4-fold. So does that mean that the existing businesses are going to see a reduction in their percentage of the levy because it's going to be spread out amongst, instead of 100 businesses, maybe 300 or 400 businesses?
At this time, we won't be able to answer that question because it ultimately is going to be a function of what budgets they set with the enlarged BIA. And then we would then calculate an appropriate rate to spread that budget out across their, based on their assessed value. But if they were to keep the exact same budget and just expand the BIA, then you would see then everybody's levy coming down.
Thank you. Second question is with regards to the boundary. In the south end, it takes quite a meandering curve around through the middle of backfields, and then it looks like it zooms around the airport. Is that intentionally to exclude the airport and the associated businesses that are in the airport region? Like there's a lot of rental buildings and commercial development going on down in that area. And then it zooms way back down and catches part of McGregor Park. How was this boundary determined? And can we expect that we might see this map again in another forum?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Deputy Mayor, you'll definitely see the map again because it will be as part of the new bylaw when it comes to council. Unfortunately, I can't answer tonight how the map was determined, but I'm sure the staff will watch this meeting and take that feedback. I guess what I would just offer again is that we're talking about commercial assessments. So when we hit boundaries of like McGregor Point, it's not really relevant to that conversation. We're not going to pick up commercial properties assessed in McGregor Point, right? So just keep that in mind. I think the goal overall was to try and capture a bigger boundary for the municipality. This is typically what we see a lot of municipalities doing, where it was previously the downtown core was sort of responsible for the downtown core. There's a recognition that community development and creating good spaces takes the entire community to make it successful. And so I think the BIAs are also looking for some stability and ability to grow their program, and to do that, including the entire of the municipality, is what they think is the right idea to do that. And we do see that kind of across the province with a lot of municipalities. It is the entire municipality that participates in the downtown.
What I was referring to is we're going to see this again. I think in 2025, we're expecting to see a ward boundary review. Could this form part of that? Because that's quite an expansion or potential expansion of Port Elgin.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Sorry. So it's a very, it's an independent process. Wards are used solely for voting, right? So generally speaking, it's not used throughout other systems as well. But that doesn't mean that the information can't help to form other processes. So the first round of questions that's going to go out as part of the ward boundary review is just, are people even interested, right? And then the information, and then following that, there will be another round of questions that's going to further define perhaps what they may look like if people want the wards redrawn. That's one of the options. So the information that we can use to help come up with what those boundaries may look like, we can certainly use this process to help inform that.
I think it was Councillor Davinsky next, and then Councillor Grace.
Yes, just to clear up a few things, my colleague, Councillor Halpin, said he hopes that there will be a rigorous campaign. And I think the correct version is there is a rigorous campaign. The BIAs are already talking to owners about this. Not the official, we haven't got the letter, but the talk is out there. And speaking for the Southampton BIA, they have been working hard on this one to see it go through. Without growth, you stagnate, and that could happen in Southampton. Will it bring down the rates? I don't know. It might bring down the rates, but then again, if we get the big boundary, like you alluded to, Councillor Mayette, in Port Elgin, then there's more to cover and more work to do and more businesses to bring into the promotion of the BIA and their businesses. So there's a lot there. I can tell you one thing, our board has not gone into this lately because this is going to take a lot of work and we're looking forward to moving to the next step. Thanks for allowing me to say that.
And Councillor Grace, if you could just allow the manager of development, Jay Posner, put his hand up. And so Jay, the floor is yours.
Apologize, Deputy Mayor. I logging in from home. I never know, or at least the new system, not sure how to interrupt. And I appreciate you taking. I just want to emphasize that it's the BIAs that are, encouraging this process. So they're in control. We're helping facilitate. You've said it all along. I just feel like I need to underline that is that the BIAs are encouraging an opportunity to consider expansion of the area, and they're in control of what they would like to see. So we're just facilitating. I just wanted to emphasize that. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Within the formal process, it talks about, and we mentioned this already, that a notice of intention to pass a bylaw will be mailed to property owners. Will that be sent by registered mail?
Thank you, through you, Chair Huber. Sorry, I just threw myself off. The Act does not require it to be registered mail, so that would not be my intention. However, part of what would likely occur would also be some other, as much as the BIA is going to be driving this and ensuring that they're that the new and proposed businesses within the boundary are aware of this. There's also going to be opportunities to make use of town social media or the website. Speaking with comms, I'm sure they will be able to provide some expert advice as to how they feel would be the best additional notices to make sure that people know when they need to have any of their communications back in. As the deputy mayor noted, we would only be receiving objections. So if we don't receive an objection from somebody, it is assumed to be that they are in favor.
Thank you, Dawn. I have another question, though. The second bullet point on the formal process says, within 30 days of the mailing date, landlords must provide tenants a copy of the notice and provide the clerk a list of all tenants on their property and the share of property tax they are responsible for. So what happens if that doesn't happen?
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. There is no real guidance within the Act that says it's not like there's a penalty section to do with this. So it is on the property owner to ensure that we're being provided the proper information, the correct information within their own, shall we say, agreement structure with their tenants as to whether or not they're paying a portion of the property taxes. That is not information that is held by the town. So it is up to them to be acting in good faith.
Thanks. So if it's not information that's held by the town, why do they have to provide the clerk with that list?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. So if I am provided a list from a property owner saying that business A and business B pay X amount towards the property taxes, then they are provided an opportunity to send in an objection as well.
Councillor Myatt.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So this big expansion, has the Chamber of Commerce been involved or notified? Because if I'm a business owner, and I am a business owner, and I'm currently not in the BIA because I'm not in the small zone, I'm actually not even in the big zone, but if I'm a business owner and I have a budget every year for advertising and promotion, then my Chamber of Commerce dues, annual dues, form part of that budget. So I allocate so much money towards my membership in the chamber. So if this takes place and then I get encompassed into a larger organization like the BIA, I'm going to say to myself, well, I have a budget for that already. So I'm going to just allocate that budget money from the chamber to my BIA levy, because the BIA and the chamber, in my mind, do similar things, promote business, promote each other, network each other, sort of thing. So it looks to me a little bit like stepping on the toes of the Chamber of Commerce by expanding it over the entire habitated municipality here. So question is, and maybe it's to Vice Deputy Mayor, because I think he's the representative on the Chamber of Commerce. I used to be. I still have friends. I'm still a member of the Chamber of Commerce, just not on the board. So I just wonder how they've reacted to this proposal, or if they've been notified. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor, I've attended all the meetings in 2025 for the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors meetings, and that topic has not been raised. Surprisingly enough, I'll just add this while I'm at it, though. The Chamber of Commerce from the fall of 2024 to today, it's gone from 455 members to 490 members, and that's a good thing. I just thought I'd add that while we were talking about it. So they're working hard, and but the boundary changes for the BIA we have not discussed. However, I'll talk to the manager tomorrow about it, Dave.
Once again, I'll just say if your current assessment doesn't include a commercial component, you wouldn't even be in this discussion because it's commercial assessment value only. So for example, because I've asked this question, when you get away from the downtown core of Port Elgin, you're looking at some strip mall situations. For the BIA purpose, that's one property. So that was the comment about the notice would go to the property owner who gets the tax bill. They would be expected to provide some information to the town, and that's how it would work. I've heard at the BIA that membership on the BIA board requires that somebody either be that property owner, or the tenant has to get, the nod from the property owner. So there's a whole thing there between a business and a property owner. So anyway, are there any other questions, comments? We're just receiving this for information, so there's no vote here. However, I did ask a question about the boundaries because, as Councillor Mayette brought up, the line just looked weird. It was just this jagged little thing, and I did ask, how did it get arrived at? I suspect there will be some consideration to just the whole community being divided up, which would then mitigate, a line kind of through an area. But until we see a new map, that's hard to say, because there's also, if you were to look at both the Port Elgin and the Southampton potential expansion maps, there's one tiny little piece that's in both. So they wouldn't be in both to get charged twice. So the mapping, I think, is going to be considered, but the BIAs will be the driving forces behind this. But again, it's a no response is deemed to be a yes response. So hopefully the communications will reflect that. Are there any further questions from anybody? Well, seeing none, then we've just received that. We don't even have to do anything. Maybe we can invite the mayor to come back in. He hasn't left the building. Oh, he's hanging out in the shadows.
Okay, thank you to the Deputy Mayor for that. We'll move on then to what was 9.2 on the agenda, the Bruce C Nuclear Project Impact Assessment Status Update, and we'll turn that over to Alex Thompson, our Strategic Initiatives Officer. Alex.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. Today, I'm here to provide a report to Council with an update on the impact assessment process for the Bruce C nuclear project, including next steps. An impact assessment is a planning and decision-making tool used to assess the potential positive and negative effects of proposed projects. On January 15th, 2025, at the request of Bruce Power, the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada suspended the timeline for the impact assessment for the potential Bruce C nuclear project. It is expected that once the timeline has resumed, IAC will soon after publish draft plans and a public commentary period will begin. Municipal staff will prepare comments during the upcoming public consultation period and present them to Council for endorsement. Currently, staff at the town of Saugeen Shores, the municipality of Kincardine, and Bruce County are engaged with Bruce Power's Bruce C project team, discussing potential funding to thoroughly understand our existing service delivery and the project's anticipated impacts. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that Council may have.
Thank you. So there's a resolution that council received the Bruce C nuclear project impact assessment status update report for information. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Davinsky, seconded by Councillor Mayette. Questions or comments from members? I don't see any. So thank you very much, Alex. We appreciate that update and thank you for your work. We'll move on then to 9.3, which is the Saugeen Shores logo refinement report of the manager of strategic initiatives.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In January, Council received an initial report presenting a newly developed brand narrative and updated town logo. This current report builds on that, incorporating Council's feedback on the logo. The refined logo enhances usability, preserves the town's core identity, improves accessibility, and increases flexibility across all applications, all while being gradually rolled out to minimize budget impact. The key updates include color adjustments. The refreshed design retains the existing colors while improving contrast for accessibility. The text now meets AODA standards with 2 shades of blue, while the orange has been shifted to the birds for better readability. The font and spacing, a lighter font weight and increased letter spacing improved legibility, especially at smaller sizes. And then we've also included a stacked logo version, and this variation is designed for limited spaces such as social media. Adjustments ensure clarity and balance in the design. The brand guidelines will reflect these refinements upon Council's approval. The guidelines include examples of community branding, though there are no immediate plans to implement these variations. Once approved, the refined logo and brand narrative will be integrated into town communications in a measured and cost-effective manner. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So the resolution is that council approve the brand guidelines for the town of Saugeen Shores to include the town's existing logo refreshed as outlined. Is there a mover and seconder? The Deputy Mayor and Councillor Grace. Questions or comments from members? We'll start with the Vice Deputy Mayor and then come to Councillor Davinsky.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the report, Jill. And when this first came to council, I was a little bit apprehensive. I still am a little concerned, about the costs moving forward with having to, change out logos. But I think I just wanted to hear from you again tonight that won't be an initial large cost in the beginning, where they will just change them out as we're changing a truck or ordering new, hats or shirts or coats or jackets. So it won't be a huge cost up front to make this change.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. It will be a gradual implementation. So if somebody needs new business cards, we would change it. We'll roll it out slowly like that.
I just wanted to add, Mr. Mayor, that Jill, I think the blue, the crispness, the new blue color, I think is really well done. I think I looked at the old logo and the current logo and looked at the blue. I think it really stands out. So I think you've done a good job of that. And I like the stacked logos. I'm not as big a fan of the staggered Saugeen and then Shores over to the right. However, I'm not the expert in this, so that's been run through the mill and been tested, and obviously that's the right way to go. But I just wanted to say I think the revisions are good, and just wanted to commend you for your report.
Just for clarity, following up on the Vice Deputy Mayor, though, those images that were in the original brand refresh are no longer going to be used, right? Like it's now, so those, some of those ones you referenced, Vice Deputy Mayor, the offset ones with the different configuration, that's no longer in play. What we see in the report before you is what's in play, just to clarify. Is that correct, Manager?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I got Councillor Davinsky next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I love the new logo. Thanks very much, Jill. A lot of work went into this. And the word that came to me was striking. Saugeen does stand out now, as it should, and so does Shores, instead of the orange. In your report, you talked about colors, and you said the bottom wave of the logo has been changed from orange to blue as the orange wave was pulling focus away from the text. And how do we know that? Was there a focus group or what?
Mike off.
Oh, sorry, not focus.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did get help from a design expert to help me with those considerations. So there was no focus group, but we did go to an expert.
Okay, it certainly does the trick, and I saw the pictures of the jackets. They look terrific. I'll buy my own. I don't have to wait for the town to buy me one. I'll buy my own. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the comments and questions. I just add my voice. I appreciate the work on this. I like as you know, I sort of expressed concern about the inconsistency or going away from the, so far away from what we have. But I do like the changes you've made. And I think it stays consistent with the existing logo with some minor refinements that improve it in the ways you've outlined. And I think that's a good thing. I think the orange, having been around, and a couple folks who were here when we created the existing logo, the orange was there for Pumpkin Fest, I think. And some will recall there were designs done which involved pumpkins and a whole bunch of things at that time, which thanks to my friend over here to the left got thrown out, and a much better one got approved. These things evolve over time, and this is not a radical change, but I think an appropriate change. And so thank you for your work. And with that, you've heard the resolution. I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Okay, so now we're on to item 9.5, the Municipal Innovation Closeout Report. The CAO informs me she doesn't really have comments to make to this, so I'll just read the resolution and we can take any questions or comments. The resolution is the council receive the Municipal Innovation Council Closeout Report for information. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Grace. Questions or comments from members? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say thank you to our CAO. I think this demonstrates strong leadership, and she saw that there's perhaps has been some good things done over the last 4, 5, 6 years, but it was time to move on, and I think that's good. That she assessed it, and I also know that our CAO did a lot of work on with the MIC over the last 2 years. So thank you, Kara, for your good work there. And again, I just think it's a good move.
Yeah, thank you. Are there further questions or comments? I might just echo those comments. We appreciate the work that Kara has done on this. It's been a lot of work for her. That's supposed to have been on the side of her desk, but hasn't been in the center of her desk lots of days, I know. And so, but it really was important work. And I think if you read through the reports there, you see some big impactful things that were done over the last few years. I would highlight too, the Smart Beach program, which continues to roll out, and Saugeen Shores has a great opportunity with, the MIC is coming to an end, but that project isn't coming to an end. And we'll have a great opportunity for some real-time safety information on our beaches. I think that's been a great and successful program in particular, and the town of Saugeen Shores is keen to seize on it and continue to work with the folks who are advancing it for water safety. So that was one I wanted to highlight. But That aside, you've heard the resolution. I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. All right, so when we're on to 9.6, procurement strategies in response to American tariffs, and the Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the rest of the council. Municipal procurement is governed by trade agreements and the town's policies. Public procurement is based on openness and fairness, and this includes non-discrimination based on place of origin. The Canadian Free Trade Agreement prohibits evaluating tenders based on local content. This agreement does permit invitational procurement below 133,800 for goods and services and below 334,400 for construction, which does allow for an opportunity for favoring Canadian businesses. Staff are not recommending changes to our existing thresholds, which are set at 100,000 for goods and services and 250,000 for construction at this time. But we are recommending that council direct staff to leverage the opportunity to favor Canadian businesses by using invitational procurement within these limits to increase the value of Canadian purchases that we are making. In the future, if the trade wars escalate further, if council wishes to further advance Canadian purchases, then council may direct staff to change the purchasing policy to raise those thresholds up to the Canadian Free Trade Agreement limits in the case of goods and services in order to allow us more opportunity to do invitational purchasing. In the case of construction, staff is not recommending even in the future that we change that limit simply because construction purchases are already by their nature, they're Canadian. And so we really would not be increasing our Canadian content by changing that level. So we wouldn't even in the future recommend that, but that would be something that council could do if they wished. Be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So there is a resolution. The council directs staff to promote Canadian purchasing where feasible and allowable within the existing purchasing policy through invitational procurement on goods and services up to $100,000 and construction purchases up to $250,000. Is there a mover and seconder for the resolution? Councillor Stack and Councillor Davinsky. Discussion. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I had occasion this morning to hear a little bit of information about the Goddard Street project. It was related to the Port Elgin BIA being interested in timing. Anyway, I'm sure there'll be stuff up on the municipal website soon, but I took advantage of my place at the table to very specifically ask the contractor on that job about where they were sourcing material from. And it's E.C. King Miller. And of course, they own the asphalt plant. So yes, and I did say there's a very aggressive timeline, which I hope will make people very happy. But I did say, what about the bricks? Are you able to source and get those bricks here? And where are they coming from? I was assured that they're Ontario bricks that are coming. How much influence can we have on people who get contracts with the town to encourage them to spend their money, because, they could be an Ontario company, a Canadian company, but, do we have any opportunity to suggest, in a very positive way, please spend your money in Ontario, perhaps, or in Canada, if you have to go outside the province? Is that something that happens or could be worked into things just as encouragement?
Thank you for that question. I think we certainly could be, as part of our award letters, we could put something in to encourage Canadian purchasing. As it comes to doing anything beyond that to try and police it, that would be beyond the scope of what we would be possible within a small organization like we have, that we would be able to police something of that magnitude.
Okay, Councillor Grace and then Maya.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the director for putting this together so quickly. Just generally speaking, I think given the Trump administration's disregard for Canadian sovereignty and initiation of its reckless trade war policies, and the harm that will be experienced by Canadian families and workers and communities and those in the US as well. I think it's appropriate for all levels of government to take a stand. And so I support us approving this this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I agree with everything that Councillor Grace just said. I was going to say some of that, but I would also like to add, because we do have property owners and we have property owners who are US citizens and we have who are ratepayers and we have people in our community who are dual citizen, one right beside me, I think it's worth saying that this is not an attack on the American people. This is an attack on one American person. And at the risk of you making an identifiable individual, I think that person is Donald J. Trump, and he has launched an attack on our country, and this is an appropriate, although minimal, but appropriate response. So I wholeheartedly agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will echo what everyone else has said. I'd like this through invitational procurement on goods and services up to 100,000 and construction up to 250,000. Through you, is there any chance, because you mentioned some other figures, is there any chance that those numbers will go up and become invitational procurement?
Council could have the ability today to direct staff to come back with a policy that raises the levels up to what's allowable under the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, which would be the 133,800 for goods and services, as well as the 334,400 for construction if they so chose to do. If he so chose to do that.
I don't have a problem with that, but I haven't studied it, obviously. I gave Jim's story I saw in the various emails we get, and Sudbury Mayor has called for anybody doing construction in Sudbury, it has to be 90% Canadian workforce. So he's putting Sudburyans to work. Anyway, Jim's got the story, and if you'd like to take a look at it, by all means do so. But I definitely will support this, and if we need something to increase these numbers, I will so move. Thank you.
I just, so to follow up on that was where my head was at too, Councillor Davinsky. I think there's really the difference between the $100,000 and 133,800 is pretty minor in terms of our approval threshold. My view is we should just increase the approval threshold to 133,800, the full amount allowable under the CFTA for goods and services. Right now, I don't see any reason to hold off on that. I would direct staff. I would be prepared this evening to direct staff to come back with the appropriate policy changes for council to consider. There's no reason to restrain ourselves. And I would just say too, and I certainly don't disagree with anybody, I'm not taking issue with anything, but I would say this isn't about an attack on anybody. This is about Canadian purchasing, and Canadian purchasing is good, supporting the Canadian economy. It's about supporting Canada, not about attacking the United States. And I think that would be good. That's good policy, regardless of the situation in terms of trade or tariffs or anything else. So I think it's an appropriate move, and I'm content to see us maximize these thresholds so that our staff has the maximum flexibility within the existing trade agreements to purchase Canadian as much as possible. And the other one, the construction one, you could go as high as 334,400, but my understanding is that it wouldn't impact much. Our construction procurement is almost entirely Canadian as it is. So the change wouldn't have much of an impact, but goods and services could have an impact. And so for $33,000 threshold, I would just direct staff to make that change now. So that would be my suggestion, but of course it's up to all of you to make those motions and take that action. So we'll go back to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I agree with you, but why wouldn't we just change both of them?
There's no reason not to, and if council wished to, you could.
Thank you.
Are there any resolutions to that effect, Councillor Grace? Or do you have another comment, Councillor Grace?
Well, I have a question, Mr. Mayor, for staff, because staff's comment said the option to increase the existing threshold increase is not being recommended. So I wonder if we could hear from staff.
Of course, the director.
My view in proposing that was that since it doesn't really have an impact in how much Canadian we were buying, that I assumed that council would want to keep as much the same and only change what's required to make an impact as it relates to American purchasing. But if council wishes to make that change, I have no issue from a staff perspective.
Councillor Dubinsky?
Is this the time to move that motion?
Sure.
Okay, then I would move that council be directed to increase the allowables with the purchasing policy through invitational procurement on goods and services up to, I think you said 133,000 and change, eight, I think, or four.
Could I,
And construction purchases up to 300,000, I believe. 331, someone said.
could I just suggest that it be to the maximum allowable under the CFD?
Okay,
Okay, so is there a seconder for that resolution? Councillor Stack? Is there further discussion then? So we're directing staff to come back to us with recommendations to change those policies to that number. That just so we're clear, we're not actually implementing it tonight. We have to get a formal change to that policy, but okay. Councillor Helpman, comments to the resolution?
Elbows up.
I read somewhere you were going to wear a t-shirt and maybe you haven't got it in the mail yet. All right. If there's nothing further, then I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thanks very much. All right. So, okay. So that was on that direction, but I haven't actually taken a vote on the main question, which may be moot now. So that overruns it. Okay. So we'll move off this issue then. Thank you very much. So we're on to the consent agenda, and just, I know there's some questions around the consent agenda. And so what I might suggest, just trying to think about how to handle the consent agenda. If there are high level questions about any of these things, we can just ask them and we don't need to pull them out. If we think there needs to be a debate on one of the issues, we will pull it out to make a decision on it. I know there's a couple of questions, but as long as they're high level, we'll just consider it as part of one resolution. So does anybody believe any of these items need a debate and a decision on their own? I don't see any requests for that. So I'll just take questions then on items 1 through 5 under the consent agenda. So we'll take the deputy mayor and then Councillor Halpin.
Thank you. I don't really have a specific question, but I just wanted to ask, 10.1 is about the water system annual report, and receiving it like this, does this mean that we will not have a delegation? Aqua won't come and talk to us the way that they have in the past with a presentation? Is this taking the place of that? Because that was always a good thing for the community.
I'm sure Aqua can speak to it now. They're here as well, along with our manager. So if you guys have some comments you want to make to it at this point, go right ahead.
I did mean to include Larry too, not just Aqua, sorry.
No, I'm turning it specifically over to Mr. Gill to just kick it off.
Okay, thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we're happy we're here tonight. I have Dan with me here to answer any questions that might come forward, because we know this is a kind of a celebration topic, and history tells us that there's always a few questions and comments. So Dan and I are here along with Director Prentice to take any questions.
Can you just offer us a high level, Larry, on the state of the water treatment and wastewater treatment system, your overall assessment of how things are working?
Yeah, so we'll start with the water first, and it's another year of what I would call celebration. So we're lucky to have Aqua with us. They're doing a tremendous job, and the report that's before you is a great report again this year. It speaks to the quality of their work, and it comes to you like this in accordance to OREG 170. So we are regulated to provide this information to you, and following tonight, the information will be available to the public at their request. So with that, is there any questions?
Anybody have anything they'd like to ask about that in particular? Councillor Mayette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the report, Dan and Larry. Both reports make for really good reading. Yeah, I had read it just before my nap this afternoon. But no, I did. And one of the numbers that stuck out to me, out of a lot of numbers was, the 54% capacity. Is that right for the sewage treatment plant in Port Elgin that the peak that we reached was 54% of the rated capacity?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's
All right.
numbers there.
And we're rigorously pursuing an expansion of that facility and for the next generation, because I mean, that's commendable number, seeing that the forefathers who invested in that facility so many decades ago had the foresight to build in capacity much more than they needed, and we're seeing that the fruits of that right now. But it's our responsibility then to make sure that the next generation, that they're well adequately taken care of as well, by putting the required investments into that system, both Port Elgin and Southampton. So it's good to hear that we're just barely scratching the surface. And then the number of things that you test the water for is quite incredible. All the metals and things that are, I guess they're traceable, but certainly well below, like in the less than 1% of the allowable limits. Would that be the same for, I'm not on the water system at home, I'm on a well, and then we actually have really good water. My well is in a spring, so we have super nice water. But would that be people who live in the country that have their own water systems? Would they be subject to those same types of metals? Are they naturally occurring in all of the water systems, or specific to the Lake Huron source?
Thank you, and through you. Yep, sorry, I just need to speak directly into it. Thank you, yes. So that's a tricky one because each well will potentially tap into a different aquifer. So there may be different factors affecting those.
Okay, I think Councillor Halpin had some comments. Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So both the Port Elgin returns its water into on the sewage side, the waste side. Port Elgin returns its water to Mill Creek, and Southampton returns their water to the Saugeen River. Is that correct?
Through you, yes.
And for the water that they need, they're not drawing water from the river for that. Where do they get their water that you need for your sewage processes?
Thank you. Through you. So the sewage processes are actually wastewater that is processed, and then any additional wash water is potable water.
Okay, so it comes from the system. I did have a question on page 11 of the Southampton report, and it showed the effluent flow of around 48 for the first 6 months. And then it was a much lower level for the rest of the year. What was the reason for that?
So essentially equipment upgrades, upgrading the equipment to allow us more granular data.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had is, like, I'm aware that you guys are seeking, or staff and everyone is seeking grants and seeking funds for some of the major works that are planned for wastewater plants. How are we doing on these application and grants? And, you know, when about is the work going to start? And I guess my big concern is that, do we have sufficient reserves for the work that we're going to plan on doing without having all the grants? Thank you.
Yeah, I think we'll turn that to Director Prentice.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Your Worship. We have sought grants specifically for the Southampton wastewater treatment plant upgrade because it is shovel ready. The planning stages have begun for the Port Elgin wastewater treatment plant and the water plant, but it's not shovel ready. We're very early in the EA process for that, but the Southampton wastewater treatment plant is shovel ready. We applied twice under the Housing Enabling Water System Fund, USIF, were rejected twice, and now we've applied under the Canadian Housing Infrastructure Fund for the project. So that just happened, so we don't know if we'll be successful with that yet. We're tendering the sewage plant relatively shortly. And in terms of the reserves for the project, the actual project costs are included in the 10-year financial plan, and we've allocated increases in rates over the coming 10-year plan in order to pay for that in the plan. And that was approved by council. It's notable that once we finish the master plan, which is being undertaken now, the water and wastewater master plan, we'll follow that up with a new financial plan for council's approval, which is a requirement to get our license renewed, our drinking water license. So that information will be updated later this year and refined. And then following that in the business plan in 2026 is an actual rate study as well for the structure of the rates. So in terms of a financial standing, everything that we're doing right now is based on the best information we have and is consistent with the business plan that was just approved by council.
Thank you very much. And just a comment that I really enjoyed the tour that we took of the facilities about a year ago or so. And I would just say that if there's any such opportunities for something like this again, or opportunities to educate us on these things, because it's certainly a big part of our budget and a big part of what makes a community is being able to pour a glass of water and flush your toilet. And those are some of the most important things that we do. And so if there's any other educational or training available for us, I'm very interested in taking part of it. Comment. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll get Councillor Davinsky and then come back to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Don and Larry, probably to Don. In the Southampton Sewage Treatment Plant Annual Report on page 4, I was looking at monitoring data. By the way, these two reports are terrific and very encouraging. And this thing just happened to stand out, and I thought we'd get it on the table. The Southampton Sewage Treatment Plant was within all effluent objectives with the exception of total phosphorus in December, and thus limits for the entire reporting period. I'm wondering in layman's terms, why did that happen? And have we taken steps to make sure it doesn't happen again? Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so we did have a equipment failure, and it did lead to a little bit of a phosphorus exceedance. They happen from time to time. They're relatively minor, and yeah, we've taken steps. We're working on rebuilding quite a bit of equipment as well. As you know, we're working on other upgrades, so yes, that's being resolved.
Okay, thank you. And I just want the people to know that there is no problem with our sewage system. There is no problem with our drinking water programs. I'm really proud of them. Thank you very much. And thank you, gentlemen.
You, the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. They are really good reports, lots of statistics. There's a concern always though with growth in our community and the impact that has on existing infrastructure. My read of the water report would show that July is always the peak use month for us here in Saugeen Shores, but it would appear as though the system last year, I think, was at about 2/3 capacity during July. So the system itself has been accommodating growth, and the expectation is that there's still some room there given the level of development that seems to be going on here. So are there any concerns about capacity with the water system going forward that are more immediate, or I know we're doing the master plan process, so certainly something a few years down the road, but the report seems to suggest that capacity issues are minimal, if existent at all. Thank you.
Through your worship, certainly we don't have an immediate concern. There's a process that's being undertaken in the master planning process, the calculation of uncommitted hydraulic reserve capacity. So the consulting engineer that has that project in hand is currently looking at our existing flows but also our existing committed developments and doing the math to determine what % of capacity those developments may require. So for instance, if you have a plant at 50% and they calculate that you need another 20% for your committed developments, they report that you have 70%, including your uncommitted develop or your committed developments, and then you have 30% uncommitted hydraulic reserve capacity. Those numbers are being calculated now. When we come back to council with the findings of the water and wastewater master plan, we will include those findings in there. But as you say, given the numbers that we actually see, you'd pretty much have to add 1/3 of the population to get to that. And I don't anticipate major concerns, but it will be very interesting to see where we're at in terms of that calculation. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Since you guys are both there, just to echo the comments that they are good reports. And as you said, Larry, says cause for celebration because demonstrates that we have a water treatment system that's functioning at 100%. And a sewage treatment system that is functioning very well, and we have ample capacity, and also that we have the plans in place to make sure that that capacity continues to expand at a rate that's necessary to serve the community, both in terms of the planning we're doing and the financial plan that we have in place to ensure that we're continuing to grow that system. So the bottom line is we have safe water now, we have good sewage treatment now, and that's going to continue forever. So thank you guys very much for that. And so there's the other items on there. That's water and wastewater. There's the 3 other. Anybody else have any comments to any of those? The Deputy Mayor?
It's not a question, it's just a comment. 10.4 on the list relates to the Scout Hall in Southampton, and Southampton Rotary does an admirable job at allowing that facility to get used in so many different ways. So it's nice that there's a 10-year agreement here because as much as Rotary uses it, first and foremost, it is a community use building too, and it does get used very well.
Yeah, thank you. It's also the items of communication there too, just to make sure everybody's aware of that. Councilor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I read item number 10.4 or 5, I guess, or whichever number it is, about the town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, and their petition to the province to step up the servicing of the Landlord Tenant Act. And I think this is it's a good balanced resolution that they've put forward, because there are a lot of people with the addition of the ARUs. There's a lot more people that are going to become landlords potentially, hopefully, and provide the needed housing that we need. And I belong to a group, a Facebook group of small landlords, because I'm a landlord myself. And it's scary getting into the landlord business these days. There's lots of fraudulent activity. There's lots of good tenants too. And so both sides of that equation need to be protected. And that's why we have the Landlord Tenant Board. But the rate at which the board can handle complaints, either for lack of payment or improper evictions or whatever the case may be, is very long and arduous, and it puts a financial strain on landlords and tenants alike. So I like that they're petitioning the government through the Municipal Association of Municipalities and the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Paul Calandria, and the Attorney General, Doug Dowdy, to put some extra effort into the dispute resolution mechanism so that people who are landlords or tenants both have adequate protection, and that this industry can continue to flourish and provide for our communities. Thank you. Oh, and I would like to move that we have a similar petition go forward.
So what I'll do to handle that at this point, Councillor, is I'm going to consider a resolution on the consent agenda to receive them for information. We'll take that resolution, following which you can make a resolution to that effect. Okay? I want to just deal with the consent agenda. So why don't I read that resolution now? The resolution is that items 10.1 through 10.5 be approved and received for information. Is there a mover and seconder for the resolution? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Grace, any questions or comments? Anything further? If not, all in favor? That's carried. And now Councillor Mayette has made a resolution that council support the resolution from the town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, with regard to a request for landlord tenant reforms. That's been moved by the councillor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Halpin. Any discussion to the resolution? Councillor Halpin.
I just want to, through you, Mayor, I personally know of a few people that have rental properties that aren't renting them because of just bad experiences that they've had with tenants. And I think that justice delayed is justice denied. And with a couple cases I know where it took 14 months for a landlord to get to the tribunal. 14 months of no payment. This is something that needs to be fixed. So thank you for bringing this up, Councillor Matt.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, so now we are on to item 12, our close to public. It's recommended the council move into a closed public session to receive advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege on litigation or potential litigation and provide direction on the 2025 Q1 general legal update. So the resolution is the council move into a closed public session in accordance with Municipal Act 2001, Section 2392E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Davinsky, seconded by Halpin. All in favor? Council will move into a closed public session. Yes, we will take a 10-minute break and we'll reconvene. We will convene and close at 15 minutes after 8. Okay, so I have a resolution that council arise from the closed public session and resume the regular council meeting. Is there mover and seconder? Councillor Stack and Councillor Halpin, all in favor? That's carried, and I will report that during the closed public session, council approved closed public minutes and discussed matters relative to litigation, receiving advice, subject to solicitor-client privilege, and providing direction regarding the Q1 general legal update on litigation matters. Okay, so now we're on to bylaws. We're going to split this into two because two of these bylaws I have a pecuniary interest in. So to begin then, well, first, does anybody wish to have any of the bylaws read on its own? Seeing none, so I will read a resolution then that bylaws 28, 29, and 30, 2025 are hereby read, passed, and sealed this 24th day of March 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Mayette, second by Councillor Duhaime. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. And so now I will just go back to my chair and let the clerk read this bylaw, and the deputy mayor will chair.
That bylaws 26-2025, 27-2025 are hereby read, passed, and sealed this 24th day of March, 2025.
Can I have a mover for that motion? Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Mayette. Any questions? All those in favor? Those two motions are carried.
Okay, thank you. So now we're on to the confirmatory bylaw, and it's resolved that bylaw 31, 2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 24th day of March 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? Councillor Davinsky and Councillor Duhaime, all in favor? That is carried. And finally, the resolution is that this regular council meeting of March 24, 2025 hereby adjourns at 9:01 p.m. Is there a mover and seconder? The deputy mayor and Councillor Stack, all in favor? Council stands adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody.